good morning to you, our listeners via Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9, whatever part of the island you're listening. Good morning to you. Wherever you're at, have yourself a lovely morning. Those of you viewing via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, or Channel 20, good morning and welcome to another edition of To The Point. Let me say good morning to my social media audience. I'm not sure if we're back on our Facebook page as yet, but if you were able to view, I haven't checked it for the morning as yet myself, but if you're able to view us via our Facebook page, good morning to you. Those of you via the YouTube channels, also good morning and welcome. Let me say good morning to my, of course, co-host, as usual. Good morning to you, Mr. McIntyre. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning to you, GT. I am doing absolutely fine. Despite having a little bit of physical challenge. I think I injured my back over the weekend. I think I'm having a little bit of lower back pain this morning. But despite that, I'm grateful, I'm thankful, excited, energetic about Monday mornings. And sharing and dealing with people is always my passion. So I'm really good.
All right.
Happy to be here.
Great to hear that. Besides the little injury that you sustained, I certainly hope that will roll through by the weekend, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. All right. Well, it's been an interesting week that's passed. I've been hearing lots have happened in terms of around the other parts of the world. The heat, everybody's complaining about that. While some are complaining of the heat, there are folks who are complaining about, the inclement weather in the neck of the woods. You understand?
Yes.
Some are complaining too much rain and, some are having hurricanes passing through their neck of the woods. How has it been? What's been been buzzing, if I could say, for the week that you may want to share with us this morning?
Good. It is always this interesting kind of intro that we sometimes run over our time because it could find itself really.
But sometimes it's good. It's good to ponder upon it.
Yes.
It's good to ponder on it.
So we want to stay home first a little bit in terms of the heat index that we've been experiencing.
Yep.
The meteorological office did put out an advisory indicating that we were going to have beyond the average type of heat around this time. And as a result of that, consequently, we've had some people that may have been having some effects. People who have not hydrated themselves properly, and as a result may have become dehydrated to an extent where it began to have negative implications. But what I like about the advisory and the warnings that's given, apart from the meteorological content of it, they have done the biological in terms of saying to people, you need to be able to consume water, wear the right type of clothes, and go to the places where you could be, where you would use up less moisture, etc. And your energy would be conserved to an extent. As we look regionally and internationally, we've had some impact of not necessarily the tropical cyclones, but we've had those waves and so on. Some of them did become cyclones in the northern Atlantic, and so they've not made significant landfall, but they've had the effect. We've had Haiti, Jamaica, and a few places having excessive rain. But what was forecasted there was the cyclones that were approaching these islands were likely to become hurricanes. Unfortunately, again, you have factors within the atmosphere that would have contributed to these situations becoming less in terms of the impact and the force of winds which impacted. So we did not have any loss of life, but we did have some rain and some flooding in some areas, but they did not have the excess in terms of the storms becoming very strong and any of them generating to become hurricanes that would have been more devastating.
All right.
So across the globe, we're having a mix of the temperature. We've had wildfires still taking place as a result of the excessive heat. What this is indicating, as we said before, just the realities of the time. The religious people would say it's just perilous times that we're living in.
The Almighty is coming.
It is coming, which is a fact. And the scientists would say these are global changes because of man's intervention. And even the religious people would also say that because man is man's own enemy, and nothing that's really created technically say man does not have some part to do with it. So if you put the science and the religious and the scriptures and everything together, it would give you very interesting sides of things to discuss. But the reality is that we are facing situations that are inevitable, and for us, we have to learn to manage the risk, and we have to be able to deal with it. And so the information relative to how to deal with those situations, I think they are critical. And the medium, I think people need to tuning more to our local stations,
Yes.
our local media houses could expand their reach in terms of accessing the information and relaying it to the people. And then subsequently, the interpretation of the information disseminated is also critical.
Yes.
Because as we were having the offline discussion, how people interpret information given to them could dictate how they respond and how they react.
Exactly.
And again, people who have influence in public space, the things you say, the words that you give.
Mr. McIntyre said that, and for some reason you may have a certain, influence, and they interpret it differently to how you may say it. Even though even though they may come across correct to a point, but they bring it across different, and then you know how the thing goes from one person to another.
Absolutely.
The whole thing deteriorates to another level, and then
Absolutely. So that's why those of us who are in public space, we have to be so mindful that we are in a global space, and what we speak can have local and far-reaching implication and so forth. And therefore, that's why when I personally speak, I try to bring the information to layman's language and try to give the explanations. And still doing that, people do interpret in different ways.
In a different way.
And so we have to be mindful of that. But it has been a good week. I do have a little bit in terms of what my involvement and what you did, how we did, and what happened locally. And there are some things that are interesting, though. I participated in a youth emergency action, the youth YAC. I think you heard of them about.
I've heard about it. Never followed up on it thoroughly, but I have heard about it. Give us some details on that.
Yeah, and I think it's really an interesting initiative is happening in some of the islands, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, for sure. There's a youth initiative in disaster risk management.
Okay. And
the youth, I've always said, if we have to build our future, we must focus on the youth. And if we have to build the future in disaster risk reduction, there are good places with the youth. And the Youth Emergency Action Committee, they had a series of training where they're trying to integrate them into, this one was driven by Caritas, it's a Catholic relief organization and so forth. And USAID sponsored those initiatives, ensuring that the young people are part of the national response system from that religious leading. So they're taking a lead in terms of how they are preparing to deal with their side of disaster response and disaster relief management.
Okay.
And it is one of the things that I'm sure that the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, would encourage, because it takes off the burden from the national system and allows some of the stakeholders to adopt some of what they should be doing. So when sectors are able to assimilate and take up responsibility, it means that our society becomes a bit more resilient. So the training that occurred over a week, there was an exercise where they were looking at their plans and the policies and seeing the young people moving from being just the youth from the 16 to the 25 age level that they allow them within a program, and showing that they have identified some of them to graduate into the senior level and taking up that kind of responsibility. That was encouraging.
Right.
And that in itself was very, very interesting. And there was a ceremony that they held at the Mount St. Ovens where they recognized the youth contribution and some of the stakeholders. NADMA was represented, some of the organizations and companies that contributed to the process, they were there. And I think we need to see more of that. We need to focus on our youth, not just to criticize them for what they do negatively, but we need to create the environment of other things that give them more options, meaningful things, and see them move from one stage to the next. We should be able to chat our young people from one stage. They must be able to see career paths, and not only career, but the social involvement, how they can involve in societal and community initiatives. We must be able as a nation to create that pathway, not just to get them jobs, but how they can give back to the society without actually looking for a tangible return.
It's gone to the stage in the world today where it's no longer said that young people are too young to participate.
Right.
Back then, maybe you being at a young age, they would say, Sylvan is too young to be part of that. The older head is a thing where you're too young to understand. But the times has changed.
It has changed.
And young people have taken up a lot of initiatives now that is gearing the world in the direction that it's going, especially on that positive path. Even though there may be some folks who are going negative, but on the positive path, we can see a vast majority of young people who are participating in events like you speak of. You can see that positive growth in those individuals, and it's helping out a whole lot, in terms of the initiative that they've decided to participate in.
Right. And finally, in our intro segment, offline we were speaking about giving people their love and showing people the appreciation, the flowers and so on while they're alive. And it is really good to see, even coming out from that ceremony at Mount St. Level that I witnessed, there were people, not just the young people, but other senior citizens who were recognized for their contribution, and tell them, how well and how much they are doing. I met a young man. I was coming from one of the hardware stores. Was it on Saturday afternoon, I think, or morning? And I met a gentleman, and he said, "How are you doing, Mr.?" I said, "I'm fine." He said, "You're doing a fine job. We look at your program and everything, and we follow you every Monday. A lot of people look up to you, and a lot of people appreciate your information." And he said, "So stay focused." And I was like, that was a check back to me. I said, "Okay, yeah, we are reaching some people, GT, and some people look up and they appreciate what you do." And so it gives you the ring check ever so often that if you are positive, it will be noted. And if you stream down the negative line, and it also will be noted.
Yes.
So it is very beneficial for us to be the positive influence to our society, and know that what we do as parents, as citizens, or otherwise, it does have implications for other people. People are watching. And most importantly, children are watching. I was looking at something in church, I think it was Father's Day church, and a young man created this poem, and he said it was about, "Daddy, don't walk too fast," something like that sort, "because I'm following in your footsteps." It means therefore that if you're moving too fast, literally, you might outrun those who are following, who intend to follow. It also means
grabbing the concept of it.
Grabbing the concept of the footstep and the following. It means therefore you should be conscious of what you do. It's gonna either influence somebody to follow you positively, or it's going to influence them to take the negative track. So when you make your steps, ensure that they are okay enough that people can follow. And where you are going, that when they end up there as well, it is something that they can benefit from.
All right. It's like creating that path for someone else to follow.
Absolutely.
And in the direction that you take, in the path that you are creating, it's a positive influence for who is behind coming forward.
And as a society,
not only as fathers and as a whole.
Yes, man.
I certainly agree with that. I'm happy with that.
Yes, man. Our society and people. I think if more people think about the impact they can have, the influence they have on others, we definitely will have a greater society. If our politicians understand as well that once an election is over, that you're not campaigning anymore, but you have a nation to build, you have people to look for, you have to put away the colors and the support and say, well, this is, we're going to have definitely a better society.
That path. It still goes back to saying that positive path.
That positive path.
We drew for a break. Let's take our first break for the morning and we come back. We have an interesting, what we're going to be speaking about this morning. We know in the next couple of days or in the next week or so, we could say, school will reopen.
Yes.
And, there are things that, maybe there are youngsters who may be viewing the show this morning.
Yes.
And, parents who may be viewing the show this morning. And, so there are things that sometimes we take for granted. That could have, make a difference in terms of your son or daughter's life, and taking the worry off your mind also as a parent.
Yes.
When we come back after the break, stay with us, folks. It's To The Point. Coming right back.
Is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway, and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Carelessly, I was tossed out. I was considered trash. And many thought that's all I'd ever be. Some told me to give up, go back to the landfill, so that I could take 450 years to decompose. No, I dream of a different life, of being part of something better, stronger, and more purposeful.
If given a chance, your plastic would choose to be put to more beneficial use. Choose recycling.
The Ministry of Tourism and Economic Development and the Grenada Tourism Authority extend a warm welcome to visitors and returning nationals visiting for Carnival and summer vacation. We do hope you enjoy your stay with us, and we invite you to return with friends and family to celebrate our 50th anniversary of independence on 7th February 2024. Tourism is my business, your business, our business.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to The Point for today, Monday, the 28th day of August, 2023. And on Mondays, usually, my co-host with me, Mr. McIntyre, we speak of issues that is of relevance, especially when it comes to watching the disasters or something that will help us to that way forward. You understand? And we certainly do that every Monday. And welcome back, Mr. McIntyre. Welcome back. And before we took the break, I did mention we want to talk this morning a wee bit on the mitigating factors, especially when it comes to school. We're going back to school, the risk, from home, on the road, and so forth. Yes. That's usually where you come in, the strong part of how you come in. Yes. I will probably chime in when it comes in from time to time. We know institution of learning, youngsters heading back to school, especially those who we're not saying more of the younger ones, but there are those who now feel, well, mommy and daddy is giving me the benefit, I could go to school by myself. Yeah. If I'm going along the right track, I can now take the bus on my own. Yeah. I can now walk to school because maybe over the holidays I may have developed the feeling that I can manage myself to some point. Yeah. And but there are risks in that. Yeah. Especially when the youngsters start using the roads. For some reason, the traffic may get a little busier, especially when school is on vacation, because there's more pedestrians moving around. And, drivers, and how a nation road today is not like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Right. You understand? The roads are pretty busy, especially that time of the morning. Even after school, it's pretty busy. Yeah. So there are a lot of factors that youngsters could probably listen to this morning that could benefit them when they use the roads. Parents, and of course, things you could talk to your sons and daughters about in terms of road use. Even drivers on the whole. There's probably something we can say this morning that can make you probably change your whole attitude to how you use the road. When especially when you see youngsters moving along the nation roads. Yeah. So let's take a go. I'm not sure where you want to break the ice on this.
Yeah, no worries. What I do in preparation for the Monday programs. Mm-hmm. Because it is risk reduction, emergency response technically, I pray about the issues and I ask for leading in terms of what can make the relevant and the timely impact on people and how it can contribute towards the society becoming better. And so the time would have something to do with it and the occasion, and so I would generate the information that is relative to those kind of a condition. And I've been looking very closely, analyzing some of the risk associated with the back to school, the reopening of school, institutions of learning, etc. And we want to look at mitigating situations, how we can limit. Now, the word itself, mitigation, simply implies things that you can do to adjust the things that you cannot prevent. Yes. So you can minimize some things, even if you cannot prevent it. And so we are going to look at mitigation in the sense of preparing your child for going to school. Remember the days when people prepared their children for passing, after you pass the common entrance, you're now going to secondary school. No, that's a big thing in terms of a child leaving a primary school and entering secondary school. And there are children who might be leaving a remote location and you're going into a more, urban setting where the situation will be different. You have vehicles that be moving faster and things are happening, more influence. And the preparation of children into moving into those environments, that is also critical. So we're going to chime in a little bit on that. Motorists, drivers, and parents and so forth who have vehicles and would be on the road, there are some factors that you need to take into consideration. The summertime, the normal time when people are off school and some people are off work, it is a different setting when schools reopen. The traffic situation, the environmental conditions become different, and so our attitude and our approach need to also be different to that.
It's called like readjusting.
Readjusting to that.
Yes.
As we look at Ministry of Education itself and the school systems, what structures are we putting in place, or they putting in place, to ensure that particular risks are being reduced in the school environment? For example, we think about students who may have medical underlying conditions and so forth, and whether or not the school have systems in place and places that are designed to accommodate those persons who would come down with those kinds of injuries and those kind of sicknesses or otherwise, or illness that cannot be prevented, but they know, like for instance, asthma is a condition that children would have. And there are other conditions, for instance, students may be epileptic and otherwise, and what conditions are there in school to mitigate that? And the general overriding condition would be, are teachers and staff trained in first aid to deal with situation, to deal with some condition, or is there a medical or an emergency response plan and team that would deal with those situations if we have them? Now, if we start thinking about that, you would realize we can open up quite a bit. So is there a first aid kit
at the school?
At the school. Is there a teacher who is trained in first aid, or are teachers trained in first aid? Is there a sick bay or a sick room and somebody responsible for it? And is that sick bay or that sick room equipped with items and equipment that can help a child if that child gets sick? So these are some of the things, hopefully within the next 40 minutes, the program will allow us to touch on a little bit. So let's rewind right back to the start.
Yes. I mean, you could ask the question, how many schools are equipped with that in Grenada?
Right. And as you speak about equipment, I want to touch on one of those that even our workplaces sometimes do not have.
Yes.
I mentioned it on our programs, on one of our programs when we started early, in terms of an AED, an automated external defibrillator.
Yes.
That is